Untitled Film Project Podcast. Top Gun Maverick is finally in theaters after waiting 36 years to have the ultimate 80s movie be brought back to life. What was your quick take on Top Gun Maverick?
It was entertaining. I'm glad I went and saw it in the theater. I think it's the only place you can see a movie of that scope. But I was not overly impressed.
I knew it. There is a reason this film is going to make a beep ton of money. I just went and censored myself before you go over.
I appreciate that.
There's a reason it's going to make a lot of money. And that's because it is a blockbuster film that is meant to be seen on a big screen. And not just a regular big screen where you go into your small theater and you see it on a movie screen. No, this is meant to be seen in IMAX, in Dolby, in 4DX, in ScreenX. Big screen because it was filmed in IMAX. This is something you're supposed to sit back, immerse yourself in because they spent the time and the money to make sure they're doing it properly and right. I appreciate this film as an action film. I think that they took it seriously enough as a sequel to give fan service, but not overall too much fan service to actually take the storyline seriously enough. So I appreciate it as an action film. I think it's going to be the biggest movie of the summer, even over Thor, because of the mass appeal.
What?
Because of the mass appeal that this has to people.
We will be checking.
Checking this
box office at the end
I'm
of
racking
the
that
summer.
clip, and we're going to revisit this.
Because
in
of the
September
mass
or
appeal.
October.
Think about the number of people that are watching this that maybe go to the movies once or twice a year. That's what this type of film is going to attract. Thor is going to get people that are going to movies, Marvel fans, things like that. That's why I say that. I'm not trying to make a hot take. I just feel like that because this has so much hype waiting for 2 years for this to come out. There's a reason why it's a blockbuster. I love the film. I thought it was a lot of fun. You have to see it in a big, large format. We're going to go into way more detail, but I thought overall it was very well done, and I appreciate that they took it seriously enough to give us a good, fun popcorn movie that's an action flick.
This is Jim. I had a great time at the movie. I had all the feels of planes flying past me. And, I could feel it. I could see it. I was immersed in it. As far as fan service, if you did see the original, you have a soft spot in your heart for all the things that are in the original Top Gun. This movie scratches every one of those itches. At the same time, it's kind of a dumb movie, because it's perfectly following a pretty dumb movie from the 80s. So I will say...
No argument here.
A line from the film that is used several times because they are trying for catchphrases so hard in this movie. The catchphrase is, don't think, just do. It's said by Maverick. It's told to Maverick. It's like, and this is what I say to the moviegoer. Don't think, just do.
Yeah, that's what it's meant to be. As an action movie, how many action movies want to make you think? Most of them are supposed to be eat your popcorn, you're enjoying, you're like, oh, this is so awesome. You're immersing yourself, you're in a film, you're escaping. That's what Top Gun's supposed to be, but I think they went a little above and beyond because they took the extra measures of actually filming in F-18s, actually putting IMAX cameras in those jets, actually making the actors train so they're using them in the jets and not using green screens all the time or using CGI. I think that's what I appreciate as an action movie, which is a dumb movie. Yeah, this is not something to make you think or to digest or to have deep thoughts about, well, Maverick did this and he did this and what does this mean about him as a character? No. This is an action movie that is a lot of fun to be had, and I think it also has rewatchability for so many different aspects of it that I know we're going to get into, but that's why I liked it, because they took that extra step to make a good action movie.
Jeremy K. Gover, one of the cynics in this room. Let's get your, find its flaws. Tell us about them.
Yeah. So the first one is, there's a helmet law in California. And Tom Cruise is out there on his motorcycle.
He's a Maverick.
I don't care. It's still a law. Oh, is he above the law, Bradford?
Yes. Have you not learned anything about this character in two movies?
Okay.
There are literal scene after scene in each movie in which somebody of an authority figure yells at him for being a Maverick. Gee, it's funny how he got that name.
In '86. When the original movie came out, there was no helmet law in California. I know because I lived there. But then eventually there is now a helmet law, and he's out there riding around, no problem, without a helmet, down streets and interstates and all kinds of stuff.
Setting a bad example for the kids.
Yes, bad problem. The movie was highly predictable, in my opinion. I didn't care for the predictability of it. Like, so not even just like the scenes, but to the dialogue. There was a joke that the kid told when Maverick walks into the diner, I guess it is. And Maverick's line is, "Where am I?" Because he just crashed, he doesn't know where he's at. And I said in my head, I was like, this kid's going to say Earth. And the kid goes, Earth. And then I was like,
How the audience
break.
react? How the audience
There was
react?
a smattering of laughter.
Yeah. There was a lot of laughter in our theaters.
Okay, so it to that point where it was predictable. All these different elements were predictable, and I just had a problem with a lot of the film and how it was made. In the regard that I can see these things coming 20 frames away or 20 minutes away.
So you weren't able to allow yourself to escape, is what you're saying.
Not completely.
Did you? What kind of?
There were scenes. Of course, there were parts like big 10 to 15 minute chunks. Absolutely, I was in the plane with them. Okay. But then there were other times where they'd say something or there was something that happened. I'd be like, okay.
And before going in, how long had it been since you saw the first one, and what were your expectations going? Because I think that's what's going to determine a little bit too for some people.
That's fair.
Is expectations going into this film?
Okay.
As
Well, the answer to your first of all, that is a fair assessment. I had not seen the original since probably 1990, 89, 90. It had been forever, because I've long lived by this opinion that the original one is a 90-minute soundtrack. That's all it is.
For sure.
So, in that regard, I was not expecting a lot walking into the theater, and I actually got more than I expected. I got better than I expected, but I still am like, yeah. I mean, I'll watch it maybe if it's on TV in the background, but I'm not gonna go see it again.
So you didn't get any. And the last reason I asked, because you didn't get any sort of feelings of, okay, this is going to be awesome, just from the opening sequence when they're on the ship and the music, the theme, the Top Gun theme's playing, and then when it jumps into Danger Zone for just a very quick moment. Did that give you anything at all?
Yeah, it gave me, okay, this is going to be a predictable movie. Because I could have written that myself.
There were no feels. They were
I could have written that myself. Like, okay, this is going to be in it, this is going to be in it, this is going to be in it, and guess what? They were all in it.
That I only ask because I'm not trying to burn you. I think we're establishing the expectations going in, because I think there's a whole huge chunk of audience that they see that and they're like, this is going to be good. Like, that's because they want that little bit of scratch of fan service.
And that's the Hollywood formula, right, that they've mastered so well and done so many well. So the other side of that coin, as far as the Danger Zone goes, right, is, okay, again, I knew, okay, that's going to do that, going to do that.
Right.
I was happy. See, there's good things. I was happy that they got Danger Zone out of the way.
Yes, they
it's
had
in the opening scene. It's like, okay,
kick it to the curb.
Yep, like we've addressed that. Now we're moving on. That was
great.
great.
On to the next ditch.
There was another thing I really liked too. Actually, I don't know if you guys noticed this. I barely picked up on it, but I'm watching too much Screen Crush, so it was in my head. In the bar, when they go and hit the jukebox, the number on the jukebox that he hit to play "Slow Ride" was 86, which is the original year that the movie was released. I thought that was really neat.
Easter egg.
Yep, that was really cool. And the font of the opening credits was the same as the original as well. Not just the slate where it says like what what Top Gun is and all that. Not just that was the same too, but not just that, but the actual font of the credits, like the director and the cast and all that was in the exact same as the 86 movie too. I thought that was really neat. Those are subtle nods like that you can do. The jukebox, the credit fonts, like those are cool things. But when you start Take My Breath Away and Danger Zone, it's like, all right, you saw this coming a mile away. So,
all right. Well, here's where I'm a little conflicted. I see Jerry Bruckheimer, who is a symbol of 80s
and 90s
and 90s,
and pirates.
Yeah. but he really, I mean, like, he makes a certain kind of movie.
Yes.
Okay? And it kind of belonged in the 80s, the original. It was a perfect example of a little cheesy 80s, right? Give me some hot people posing in front of either a motorcycle or a jet, and give me a little tension, a little bit of emotional between two guys that are shirtless playing volleyball, and everybody's happy, right? So I thought, are they going to make a grittier, tougher, reinvented type of movie? They did not. They actually stayed in the type of filmmaking that they made in the 80s. And for me, it's one of the reasons I didn't like the original one in the 80s, but I realized that's exactly what everybody wanted. They wanted to hit those notes again for one more time on the big screen. So while, I noticed that yes, this is a horrible way to make a movie. They made the movie people wanted to see.
That's exactly what they needed to do too, I think. Just to get, because people have been clamoring for a sequel for so long, and then you have to wait after when it was teased and the first trailer we got had pandemic hit. So many things got delayed. We've been waiting for this for a very long time.
2.5 years at least.
Yeah, 2.5 years. So I want to hit on some of the things and just stop me if something comes up to you that you want to discuss.
Okay.
So
It was highly predictable.
you've already established
Oh, I'm sorry.
that, sir.
Sorry.
But here's one thing that I think is going to help it have a little staying power as a blockbuster just for rewatchability. And that I appreciate is they kept the enemy broad and they didn't name the enemy. How many times do you have in an action movie where they name the enemy of the Russians or the Chinese or the Saudis or the Afghans or the Pakistanis or whatever like that, and all of a sudden you're singling out an entire audience where you hope to market this film as well too. And so that was one thing that I think they did right. And I think maybe some audiences will pick up on, some may not. But when you just say the enemy has fifth generation fighters, has this, and this.
I definitely picked up on that. It stood out to me. And actually, while I respect the marketing reasons for doing that, but to have, just a miscellaneous general like Jon Hamm or somebody say, we have a rogue state, which we will not name, that has these super bad weapons that are really terrible, and we're going to go in and get them. I thought it was so generic. It looked like a cutscene from a flight sim game on the PS3.
So they should have named at least, even if it's not associated with a country, but named the enemy.
They could have named it. They could have created a faction name.
Like what Mission Impossible has done.
Yes.
Sure.
They could have done that, and
Like
then you're
Rogue
like,
Nation
okay.
kind of thing.
You at least have
Right.
something to gravitate onto. Because I think to Jimmy's point is that I actually was the opposite of you, Justin. I thought the entire movie, I actually spent mental energy. Who are they talking about? Who is the enemy? I didn't know. And so I spent mental time, instead of watching the film, I actually went the opposite way, which was, well, now I'm trying to figure out who they are. Who is this enemy?
Okay.
And so I didn't even
That's fair.
pick up on the marketing thing, which actually I don't respect, because I think that that's a little bit of a cop-out. But I do...
Money.
I know, but that's
Doesn't
not
make it
all
good,
good
though.
decisions, right? Not all good decisions are made
I
for that.
think when we were coming out of the screening, I don't know if it was you, Jim.
Let's be
or
for
a friend.
radio. Let's be very clear. I was not at the screening. These two were at the screening.
Jim was there with our friend Oz as well, and I forgot if it was you or Oz that said it could be Canada because it's mountainous and wintry.
I almost wish my wife did say it looked like
Canyon.
Alaska. She did say that.
Yeah.
She goes, it looks like Alaska, and I was like, well, we wouldn't be attacking each other.
So while they could have done a better job at being broad, I do like that, because 20 years down the road, I mean, we know the first one, it was the Cold War.
Sure.
So it was MiGs and everything. That's how it was branded.
okay, see,
right?
but all right. So I went back and watched the original too.
Was it not?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's fine. But I'm saying, like, I went back and watched the original because I remember asking my wife, because she watched it yesterday. Okay.
Yeah.
The original, because she wanted to get ready for the film. So I said, okay, well, who was the enemy? We were at peace. Not Cold War, I understand that. But I'm saying, like, we were at peace. Like, there wasn't an active military skirmish
Right,
somewhere. So, because if it was in 92, you'd be like, oh, it was Iraq. Like, you would just automatically assume, So I was like, well, who was the enemy? And she goes, I don't remember. I was like, okay. Now, this is the original now.
Right.
So then we go to Maverick, and again, they're very nondescript about who it is. And again, maybe it's because of that earlier conversation. I don't know. But either way, I was left in the theater in, like, let's say lulls, like little, like, kind of emotional lulls, like there's dialogue at the bar or something like that. I found myself like, well, who is it? Who could it be? What country could it be? And that took me away from.
So you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I know who that is. I know who the enemy is. And this is the take that is going to destroy this movie for everyone listening to this podcast.
Boy.
Here we go.
The enemy in this movie is the Empire. The last third of this film is Star Wars: A New Hope, almost scene for scene. Okay? We have to go through this canyon and fly.
I'm
we
with
have
you
all
for this,
these
Jim.
threats.
Keep going, buddy.
Okay,
boy.
and we are, it's going to be so dangerous in this canyon. But then, you know what? We're going to explain the mission by showing you a graphic overlay on the screen that is almost exactly what Admiral Akbar would have laid out.
It's a trap!
Yeah, it's a trap. He's like, and then you're going to have to come in low, and you're going to have to hit a 3x3 meter square, and then hope to get away. And the entire third act of the movie is the battle for destroying the Death Star.
It's a snowy Star Wars.
Oh, dear God. That would be The Force Awakens.
Let's leave that for another show.
Another thing that I thought, this is what I liked, and God, I hope both of you are on board with this.
Justin, it's okay. It's a safe space.
Representation in the cockpit.
Yeah.
There was enough of it. Not a lot.
Well, no, because it's more representative of what it's really like now, I think.
Yes.
Because,
for sure.
A woman being in the cockpit.
Yeah.
With Phoenix.
Yes.
And then also
Sure.
have people of color. I just think that was important that they do that because it didn't exist back in the 80s.
Oh, there was. Well, okay.
So-
So let me break in right there. So in the original film, and I just watched it again, right?
Right.
In the original film, Val Kilmer's character makes a joke about how the loser's plaque is in the ladies' room downstairs.
That scene is definitely sexist.
I thought they did the representation very respectfully. Also,
Yeah, I don't
there
think
was
it was
never like a
forced.
romance between two of the kids.
Nope.
Like, it was just very benign.
Yeah.
and it's more of what it should be like. I don't think there was enough.
And there was a camaraderie, though, between Phoenix and others as well, too, because they'd all gone through the class together,
For sure.
Top Gun and everything. You saw that they weren't trying to force it, like you said, a love story or a relationship on the side, so
Right.
it would have just taken away from the whole part of that.
I apply that point,
Yeah.
but I would just say that if it was me writing it, I would have given a little bit more.
Okay.
Representation.
Another thing, Jim, I'll start with you first.
Okay.
Jennifer Connelly, thoughts?
She looks tremendous. She looks better now than she did when I first started seeing her in movies. I don't know.
A beautiful mind.
Whatever it is that she and Tom Cruise are drinking, somebody should sell that because she looked phenomenal. She did a great job with what she had. I mean, her part as like a somewhat love interest. They have a history that she and Maverick have been together. Was, I mean, it's so shallowly written.
But the history was in the first film.
Yes.
It was mentioned in the first film.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say.
I knew you'd have.
They
it was
didn't
more recent
ask
for you.
Kelly McGillis back, which
Yes.
is more than fine with me.
Yep.
I don't have anything against her, Kelly, if you're listening, they could.
She's not listening. Go on.
But they did a great job having the Meg Ryan throwaway side story, which is how her name came up. Penny Benjamin came up as a Meg Ryan throwaway story. Meg Ryan's character, in an offhanded comment to, I think it was Kelly McGillis' character actually, said something like
Admiral's daughter, right?
Yeah, Admiral's daughter, Penny Benjamin. They took this one line in a movie 36 years old and said, we're not going to ask this original actress back. Let's go with this route over here. And they went with...
And there's a history.
Yeah.
There's a history of just like him breaking her heart, and they kind of made that trope continue on. Just don't break her heart again.
Yeah.
From the daughter, things like
Excellent.
that. If anything, Jennifer Connelly, for me, she would steal a scene when she was in it because she had such I want to say small screen time. Overall, pretty small screen
She
time.
did small screen time.
But obviously gorgeous, delivers the lines well, acts as in a different way than Kelly McGillis' character was, because she played more strong and was not going to just give in, was going to make Maverick work for it as well too. Also had the time in the sailboat where she's showing him the ropes.
I did enjoy the joke about him being in the Navy and not being well versed in the water.
Yeah,
That was my problem with that whole scene.
really.
It seemed to be a totally unnecessary scene. It was almost like they were like, look, we got this really great joke. Everyone thinks the Navy's about the water, but these are pilots in the Navy, so let's get them on water so we can deliver this one joke.
But I think the sailing scene also shows too that she is a strong, independent woman as well. Taking her,
I have no problem with that, but my point is,
just the joke in general.
no. I'm saying that I think you can show that in a different way. She runs the damn bar.
Well,
she
yeah, she
owns
bought
the bar.
it, yeah.
You don't. I mean,
But
you need to be stronger at a water sport too.
But it's more than just being a bar owner too. It's like
Of course it is. I'm just saying that they could have shown it in different ways. She could have been repairing the jukebox with a screwdriver. She could have been doing all kinds of different stuff. Why did they have to bring her out into the water? It's almost like it was for that one joke, and that's ridiculous.
And I'll say it wasn't for the joke. They needed a new place to show a sunset scene where they could pose, because there's so much posing in this movie in front of
There's so
beautiful
much posing.
things. That was like an Instagram moment.
Which is another point that I want to get to eventually too. The cheese factor.
Also, I want to say it's going to be cheesy. What do you expect? What I did appreciate too is when they were going, when she left the door open, and it's obviously going into where they're going to get it on, where there's going to be a sex scene. They didn't force a sex scene just for the sake of having a sex scene. In the movie.
That was nice. That was wonderful.
And I like they could show enough to show that they took it to the next level of being together without having to go deep down in to them undressing and everything. They're just showing that they're making love, and they moved on because it was not an important part of the story for their relationship. They just move on to them talking after the fact and actually connecting as characters together. So I just want to say,
I appreciated that.
Yeah, some movies just throw it in because they feel like they have to throw it in. Because the first one,
gratuitous.
It takes up some screen time.
Yeah.
Right.
This
filler.
one, you didn't need it because
The movie's an hour and a half. If they don't have it, it's like an hour 15.
move the story along, and they move the story along.
And then it's a TV show.
Because they're talking about the relationship more. The relationship is more important than having a sex scene.
And one of the big themes of the film is age. All the young guns are telling Maverick, you're too old, your time has come and gone. All the generals are saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so you've got these two characters that are now like beyond, the just adulthood in the first movie. And you're showing what a slightly more mature and what eventually becomes funny scene about the two of them getting together. I don't want to blow it for everybody, but
if they're listening, they know.
She's got a teenage daughter. So you have a completely different dynamic than Tom Cruise, Top Gun, hot 20-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely do.
The teenage daughter thing, by the way, where the daughter comes home and he's coming out of the window and he falls specifically so that they don't run into each other, and it's made this big point, and then of course they run into each other.
Predictable for you, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
But it's still funny. But
it's No, it's not. I mean,
so movies can't be predictable at all.
Okay, there was a chuckle, I suppose, but it was predictable. If I can predict it 5 seconds before it happens.
There are so many movies that are predictable and they're still funny and they still pull things off. It's how they pull it off. I just think you didn't want to appreciate it.
Okay, I went into Top Gun thinking I'm going to hate this movie.
What did I say?
No,
Jim. What did I say after this? I think Gover's not going to like this film. But did I not say that?
But that doesn't mean I went into the theater saying I'm going to not like it.
I already called it.
Okay.
Just kind of feel it.
So just so everybody knows, it was Jeremy Gover that said the movie was too predictable. It was Justin Bradford who said that Jeremy Gover was too predictable.
Okay,
that's a good recap.
I do want to throw this out because it's one of those things that obviously is getting talked about. It's important too, just for the film. Val Kilmer being used in the film, and how that was approached on the screen. Going to Jeremy first, just what was your thought on this and him being used and having that role in the film?
Can we mention where he is in real life?
Yes, yeah.
The actor Val Kilmer, I think, is noted. One of the reasons we have to say this first is, he has been battling cancer and he has lost his voice. So, you're wondering, is he going to be in this film? Does he want to be in this film? Can he physically do it? So he does make an appearance in this film. What did you think, Jeremy?
I thought it was very well done. With the asterisk, I'm not ripping on his performance. Go with me on this. Because I did not know that was his predicament. So
really?
I thought they were like, well, he's aged more than Tom Cruise has. So I thought they were fixing that with this type of character. Okay, he's gonna wear an ascot or a scarf, and he's gonna be, like in a chair, and he can only text, and that kind of thing. I thought they were kind of covering up the fact that he's actually younger, but then he looks older and all. So that's how I thought it until we got home, and then we realized that he's really a cancer survivor because he's cancer free now, I guess, which is good for him. And that maybe explaining why he looks older and all this. So all that being said is I thought it was really great how they handled it, but I thought it was a character choice.
I see.
Until I got home and did the research and realized that, they did that because it was real. In which case, I firmly applaud how they handled it in the film, and I'm glad that he got to be a part of the film.
There's a documentary on Amazon Prime, I'm pretty sure. It's called Val, and it's about his predicament. It goes through his whole acting career, but his current situation as well, which is why I knew about that. And to tell you the truth, the most emotional part of the movie was not something they wrote in the script, but it was knowing what Val Kilmer had gone through and that he has suffered so much, and it's taken a toll on him, that for him to be included in the way that film made him a part of the movie, my heart smiled.
having the text messages, so they're making him a bigger part of the film without him having to actually have screen time.
Correct.
Making sure to keep his character as an important role without having to put so much pressure on him having to be on screen so much. But through the text message between Ice and Maverick, really appreciated that because it helps you connect with it. And then when, spoilers, because obviously passes away, even pulls at the heart even more too. They had one more opportunity to see each other and speak of what was important before the mission starts and when Iceman passes.
Might have been the best part of the film for me, actually, was that the embrace of the two characters, him being like, who's the best.
Right.
And he's like, let's not get into this right now or whatever. That was, let's not ruin it. That was awesome. It was
It's
great.
a touch of nostalgia too that was perfectly fitting because it described their relationship still.
Yes, and it was foreshadowed by the beginning of the movie when when they show the photo of the two of them at the end of the original movie.
Okay, so this is one because the actor obviously has some controversy behind him. He's been divisive and everything too. Miles Teller as Rooster, the son of Goose, as well. So I'll give my thoughts first on this before I get to you guys, because I kind of had a breakdown of things I wanted to hear from you guys as well too, because I think, like the movie, my rating's probably going to be higher than both of you, more than anything else in terms of that. But I thought he portrayed the son of Goose quite well in terms of mannerisms, his attitude, the look on his face, what they were able to do with the mustache and everything as well. Obviously, you had your callback to Great Balls of Fire as well too. But I think overall, Miles Teller's growing on me as an actor. But I think just his portrayal overall of trying to envision of what Goose's son could act like while also dealing with the tension that Maverick pulled his papers, things of that sort. I think overall he played the part very well in terms of trying to think what Goose's son could be like with personality, attitude, mannerisms as well too. I think he actually did a pretty darn good job at that.
Miles Teller won me over.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, in the beginning of his appearance in the film, I wasn't sure, but it didn't take long for me to buy into him because I think he did a pretty good job.
I'll just say that I have no idea what you're talking about as far as controversy goes, and I thought he was the star of the show for me. I mean, obviously there's Tom Cruise. Okay, you're not going to say Tom Cruise, but as a supporting cast member, he was the shining star for me because I believed, so much that I had to look it up later. I believed he was actually the son of the original actor
of Anthony Edwards.
Yes, so it was it was great. It was all around great. His character arc was good. They did explain the pulling the papers and delaying his career and all this stuff, and why he'd have resentment, why he did that. His mom was actually asked Maverick, but he wouldn't tell him that because Rooster that because he's like, why resent her too? So it was. That part was crafted wonderfully, and he was really great at his part.
And Hangman has a punchable face.
Exactly.
It's really punchable.
And I got ahead. This one thing they did better than the first one. The emotional baggage part of the original Top Gun was Maverick and his father, and which I thought was a really lame backstory. It was flimsy. Very flimsy.
Yes.
This one, where you have this baggage and this, tension between, Maverick and Goose's son, it became a much better, well fleshed out story than anything in the original even touched.
Yeah, because the kid just doesn't know. Like Maverick's trying to protect him. Like the kid just doesn't know what I had to go through to protect him or to protect his feelings for his mother. So there's that tension right there. Like, because we know as the audience, Maverick knows, but Rooster has no idea what Maverick's been dealing with in terms of all that drama. So yeah.
But then there's another philosophical question there. The character is probably thinking, even if there are other reasons why, what right do you have to choose for me? That's my choice to make.
Right.
And so you have their back as well.
Make a great point. There's two things I wanted to get your opinions on before whatever I wanted to cover because it just was driving so much here. But in my first review, the spoiler-free review, I said I had eye roll moment. And I've gotten so many messages, and what was it? Or was it this? Two people trying to guess. No one has guessed it yet, which is interesting to me, but I'm sure Gover will probably agree with me on this one of like, okay, come on. And Jim, I know we talked about it as well.
God, I can't wait for this.
Well, the eye roll moment that I had was like, okay, come on, this is a typical action movie thing, was when all of a sudden they're stranded because they both crashed, both Rooster and Maverick crashed, and they come up to the airfield where all these smart bombs just somehow missed the one F-14 hangar and the taxiway. Somehow, everything else was damaged beyond belief. It reminded me a little bit of Fast and Furious, where it almost takes you out of the realism.
Almost.
You know, it takes.
Oh, come on moment.
It's an oh, come on. It takes you out of the realism of like Fast and Furious. We're like, we're going to take a car to space. And they did. But it's like they're running, the enemy's right there, whoever the enemy is.
The unnamed enemy.
The unnamed enemy. They're like, let's just run. I found it comedic. Like it was fine in the comedic area of they're stealing this and they get it going, they're getting chased, things like that. And then Miles Teller just talking about it being so ancient and everything. I thought the jokes were funny because really, can you imagine getting into a plane that's not been flown probably in 30 years or even existed in 30 years, right? But that was my eye roll moment of, okay, come on. But they worked with it. It was an action movie. I gave it a pass because of the action sequences that followed it. But that really was the, okay, come on, guys, moment for me.
I will say that I didn't eye roll at that scene, but
Okay.
I will now. But I didn't eye roll at that scene because I had so many other eye roll moments. But it's funny you bring that scene up as far as the runway goes because that's when I thought it sounded like the most like Star Wars, was what Jimmy said earlier. Mm-hmm. When they're trying to pull up at that last second before they hit that that barrier or whatever, it looks so much like the first Death Star to me.
Absolutely.
And that was the first thing I thought of.
And, Han Solo comes in the Millennium Falcon to save the day. And later, after
Act 3 is Star Wars.
What else you got, Justin Bradford?
Okay, last thing was music. Obviously, you have to bring it up. Why?
Go ahead.
What? Why?
I'm rolling my eyes because I should have saw that coming.
Why it has to be like that?
You're like, one more thing, music. I'm like, oh, criminy.
Of course.
Okay, music's already been mentioned before because of the 80s hits and everything. Kenny Loggins, all this stuff, right?
Yes.
But the theme, especially when you're in a large format where there's so many speakers, like an IMAX or a Dolby or something where you feel, as soon as it's hitting the chime, when the Top Gun themes come in, the bong, and it shakes you. For me, it's like... Like there's a little giggle.
There's a little chill.
Because you feel that as well, too, because it is setting the mood for it. But obviously you have Harold Faltermeyer's and Hans Zimmer going together, and Zimmer's one of my favorites. And he just knows how to do movie scores. I'm wearing the shirt that says Williams, Zimmer, Elfman, Giacchino, and Silvestri right now.
And Faltermeyer was tremendous in bringing that 80s flavor to the music.
Yes,
absolutely.
And I did love that part of it. In the sense that I thought it was a good callback, right?
Yeah.
That is a subtle way to harken back to the predecessor without being predictable and corny.
And then on top of
ridiculous.
that, it's big that they got Lady Gaga for her to get a soundtrack/score credit as well, because she's part of the score development too, not just the soundtrack overall. So just having her associated with it just puts it on that mega standard of blockbuster, whether you like it or not, still shows the blockbuster aspect of having her associated. Because back then in the 80s, having Kenny Loggins associated with something was huge.
Sure.
So it's the same aspect here of having Lady Gaga associated with it too.
And you're not just relying on the artists that were on the original soundtrack.
Exactly. You're taking it to a different level.
All right. So let's close this out. What are our scores? Jimmy, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm going to give this a 7.
Okay.
Because it delivers on the summer blockbuster promises that it needed to do. It's still really not. I'm generous at 7. It's a still shallow, hokey, posing movie, but I had a good time. So
that's
I'm
very
giving
fair.
it a 7.
Justin.
Oh, you want me to go before you? I'm giving it an 8.5. Because it's a blockbuster, it gave me what I wanted out of the movie. It met and actually exceeded my expectations for an action film as a follow-up for the original Top Gun. It was a fun movie. I appreciated the flying scenes and the work they put into that. So I'm appreciating the work they put into it. Tom Cruise obviously put money behind this to make sure people were trained and to make it seem as real as possible. Seeing other people talk about it that were in the Navy, that did fly these jets, saying that it felt real. It was one of the most realistic style of flight movies out there. Makes me appreciate it that much more. So it did its job as a summer blockbuster, especially in a large format. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to watch it more and more and more, and that's what makes me give it that rating.
Okay, I think it's a very average story, very vanilla story. I just talked about for the last half hour about how I could come up with half the scrap. Yeah, so that's what I do best. So I give it a 6.5 because it was average story wise, but I thought the performances were great. Like the acting, there was never a point where I was looking at the acting and being like, "Oh, this is terrible," and the credits being the same font, all those kinds of things that really kind of brought it back to the original without being too cheesy about it. But it lost me on the cheese factor. There was too many scenes that were exactly like the original. There were too many fan service / cheesy moments to the point where they weren't done clever enough, in my opinion. So I still enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it on the big screen. I'll probably take my son to see it before it's out of the theater because I think he'd really enjoy it because he's not the same critical as I am.
Yep.
So I give it a 6.5.
We're across the board here.
Yeah, I like this.
We're not across the board. You give it an 8.5.
6 to 8.5 is pretty across the board for movie ratings. That's across the board because there's not going to be many that we're going to actually discuss that's going to be like a 3.
I can't wait till one of us gives a 9 and the other gives a 3. I want a separation of 6 points.
That's going to happen sometime. Just wait.
It is. All right, this episode's question comes from Justin Bradford.
That raised me a music question, isn't it?
Duh.
We saw this coming.
Come on. I mean, y'all will get to understand that I love movie music, TV music as well, but especially movie music. So I wanted to pose the question to both of you to get you kind of rolling in with your film chops, but also what really contributes so much to making a great film. You gonna keep grumbling over there, Mr. Grumpy Grumperson?
Look, of all the music, of all the movie questions, right? Of all every facet of a film, I would say that I know the least about music, and that's why I'm.
And that's
Grumpy
why I
Gus
am
over here.
looking forward to this question most because it's making Jeremy uncomfortable.
I'm glad you said know the least about, not that you don't care, because
I definitely care.
Right, because I think everyone, obviously, if we're doing this, we appreciate what music, the role that music plays in a film and everything.
I agree with that.
So,
I just am very, very. What do they call it, Jimmy?
fresh.
No.
Noob.
Being, self-aware.
Self-conscious, I think, is what I was going for. But self-aware works. Okay, go ahead, Justin. I'm sorry.
I think you know more than you give yourself credit for, just given your background.
God, I hope so.
Well,
that's what I. Yeah.
well, let's find out.
All right.
Has Dr. Dre composed a movie? Because I know about that.
Movie score.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That just proves my point. Go ahead.
Top 3 superhero movie scores.
Ooh.
A movie score, it's almost a genre itself.
It is, especially nowadays. I mean, the past 2 decades have given us so many superhero movies with some major composers being a part of those.
And that's going to be, off the top of my head, that's going to be the toughest part because I don't want to just go recent.
Right.
I'd like to dig a little deeper here.
It's going to be hard to go beyond the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I'm just going to toss this out there. And I'm only going to do this because it was used in the movie. I hate inspired by soundtracks.
Oh, yeah. Those don't count.
I'm going to throw Guardians of the Galaxy at you because...
Soundtrack or score?
They are both.
Okay.
Because the songs are an integral part of the story.
Okay.
So
that's next week's question is the soundtrack, buddy. It's a different question that's coming.
Just wanted to clarify.
So the score does encompass the soundtrack of those tapes that are the ones his mother gave him at the beginning of the movie, okay? And that's his last hold of Mom and Earth, okay? But it makes us, remember that Earth exists in this Marvel Cinematic Universe that we never thought about. So it grounds the movie in Earth. So that'd be on one of mine. That's a movie score that has both kind of your typical cinematic, da-da-da, and, and a classic 10cc song.
All right, so I was able to jot down 3 here, okay? And
He was Googling on his phone.
No, I did not.
What is a movie score?
Jeremy feverishly typing away.
Yes. So my first answer is The Dark Knight. You could say the trilogy if you'd like, but I do.
Sure. No, I like you keep it separate.
Yeah, but so the second film, because I mean, it's, I don't want to say iconic, because if I heard the song outside of the film, I probably wouldn't be like, oh, it's Dark Knight. But I do.
Right.
But it adds so much to the film, like you were saying earlier, Justin. So for me, when there's all these heart racing dramatic scenes with Batman, they incorporate this kind of drums. It's just really.
Well, it's
really
Hans
great.
Zimmer, and Hans Zimmer does a fantastic job with that. And the drum beats, we hear that in Inception with Hans Zimmer, and so many other things. What he's done with Pirates and everything in Dune.
Inception was going to be on my list, but and then a Superman.
It's iconic.
Christopher Reeves, the Christopher Reeve Superman, not the new garbage.
Yes.
Because the second you hear it, outside of the film, you know it's Superman.
A John Williams score.
Yes,
one of his earlier ones, obviously.
Okay,
but
now
it's iconic.
Okay, now this is the third one I came up with. You're gonna have to tell me if this counts or not. If it doesn't count, I'm gonna go back to the drawing board and I'll find a fourth. Okay, because it's kind of cheating.
Okay.
The Marvel title sequence.
I'll give it to you because it is
All
iconic
right.
now.
Okay.
So it's like
As soon as it
like
hits,
the
you
20th
just know.
Century Fox, the Star
Yes.
Wars, right?
Yes.
Like there's a friend of mine when 20th Century Fox would come up, even like a Simpsons movie, whatever.
Sure.
My friend would be like, "Gonna watch Star Wars. Gonna watch Star Wars. We're about to watch Star Wars."
Your blood pressure goes up a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're anticipating. Yeah. I mean, I get psyched for the Marvel opening credits music.
It's a great point, Jim. And go over like what you're saying. I like the curveball that you throw there because now when you're going to Marvel movies and it does include that Marvel opening theme, people are ready. You hear the applause,
Yes.
you hear the murmurs of,
Sure.
"Oh, I'm so excited," because it does set the scene of what you're about to experience. And seeing a Marvel film nowadays, especially, is an experience that you're typically wanting to share with the community. So hearing that,
Eternals.
it's. I'm Jeremy Gover, and I didn't get it, so I hated it.
Most of the world.
Here we go.
Jeremy, nobody liked that movie. My
Well,
son.
I mean, apparently,
Okay, but I'd like to hear more of a
Defender over
reason
here.
than I didn't get it for
Okay.
why.
This is another show.
Okay.
This is another show.
All right.
Move on.
Okay.
So Justin,
Yeah.
your question, top 3 superhero
Yes.
movie scores, what's at the top of yours?
Okay, so as Gover will make fun of me though, I don't have a number 1 overall. I have
Okay.
it my 3.
Oh, they can be any random
yeah,
one.
my top 3.
Of course.
Black Panther,
Great one.
I would put that on there instantly.
Ludwig Göransson. It's fantastic, and what's going to be
knows
great
the
too. The National
composers.
Symphony is going to perform it in concert next season, which is just awesome. Just it's so unique because of the instrumentation using just African instruments. For those of you that are familiar with so many of the nerddom, The Mandalorian, also composed by Ludwig Göransson.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can hear the similarities. As soon as I say it, you're like, oh, you
Yeah.
start recognizing
Right.
the bits and pieces of that. So that is my first one.
Yeah, and it's great because you can instantly tell the difference between Black Panther and all of the others.
Yes.
It is like alone
Very unique.
on its island in its uniqueness. I love that.
It is. So my next one is 1989 Batman, Danny Elfman.
I thought about that one for a split second, but I changed my mind when you clarified soundtrack versus score.
Soundtrack, I mean Prince.
Because
Sure.
because Danny Elfman, of course, I mean, tremendous. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But I had that one. That was the first one I thought of until we clarified. Because to me, I identify the music, even though I know this is not the same question, as a Prince.
That will be another show.
I know. So because I think of like
Jeremy and Justin are giving each other the business here.
I mean,
today.
are we new? Because I think of Bat Dance, I think of Trust, I think of all those great
Yes.
songs for. So I don't typically think about the score, even though of course there is.
But now next time you go watch it, you're gonna be like,
Oh, for
that's
sure.
a good iconic Batman type of, especially for that
Right.
day and age, an
Yeah.
iconic type of Batman score. Dark Knight's great, obviously. It's not in my top, but 100% agree. It's difficult to pick a top 3.
It is.
It is. And remember, this is just an exhibition of things that come to our head, not
Yeah,
a
it's
competition.
ours, yeah.
Please, no wagering.
Jim, what about you? You've only named one so far. What else do you have?
I was already thinking Black Panther, so
Okay.
we're just we agree on that one. This is the one that I think you guys are gonna probably roast me on, because I don't know why this just occurred to me.
Porky's.
Superhero movie, huh?
Oh, sorry.
Flash Gordon,
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Ridiculous.
Outside the box.
over the top, silly. I mean, the silliest song Queen has ever recorded is the theme to Flash Gordon. Oh, and it's just so. I mean, it matches the over the top. I don't know. Kitsch factor that we have now looking back on it, but that movie was just so outlandish.
I feel so young right now, by the way.
It
You are the youngest one in here.
I know, and I feel so young.
the whole world was in black and white when I went to go see that movie.
I think you mean those moving pictures.
They were called the talkies.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's like just a really silly thing, but I'm going to say it's great because it's iconic for all the most ironic reasons.
No, I totally get that.
Okay. Justin, give us another one.
Okay, I'll wrap mine up. My honorable mention was Superman, by the way, because
Really?
it's so iconic. John
Wow,
Williams.
I feel validated.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you think about movie scores for superhero films, Superman in that day and there weren't superhero movies that were iconic because they were bad.
Yes,
Like,
they were.
you look at so many things from the 70s and 80s of superhero things you couldn't accomplish it.
They were total
in film then.
throwaways.
Yeah, they were throwaways. So having a John Williams produced score for Superman adds so much to that, plus the performance from Christopher Reeve. So
Yes.
that right there helps make it iconic as a movie score, given how superhero movies really didn't start catching wind until the 90s.
Right.
And everything too. So that's honorable mention for me.
And the beginning of, I think, superhero movies getting the production quality that maybe people would say a better movie would have. You got John Williams.
Right.
You know, you're not getting some guy who's going on a synthesizer just going to, just track this thing. We're going to get it in theaters. We're taking this seriously in not a super serious movie, but we're giving it enough of a budget for you to do something, worthwhile.
And arguably the most recognizable superhero in the world when you think about it, especially then.
Yeah.
Superman worldwide, people recognize the S. Batman, similar way, worldwide, what people recognize in terms of popularity. So finally, it's another Danny Elfman one for me. It'd be Spider-Man. Spider-Man 1.
Yep. Tobey
Like
Maguire.
Tobey Maguire,
Tobey
Spider-Man.
Maguire, Spider-Man, Sam Raimi.
Okay.
And it's just Sam Raimi and Danny Elfman work so well together in terms of what they do with their scores.
Yes.
So obviously, if you all have seen Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, Danny Elfman,
Yep.
Sam Raimi. Again, you feel those bits and pieces of it, and that's why there are certain parts of Doctor Strange that felt very early 2000s because it reminded me of Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. And it was just a really well done in terms of that, because that signified a new era of superhero films. And then very quickly, right after that, the Dark Knight series instituted a whole nother era, the Dark Era. So you had two quick eras of superhero movies in a matter of 5 years that changed the way things were done, because obviously a Danny Elfman score I don't think would have worked with the Dark Knight one like a Hans Zimmer one does, because the way that they compose. And I'm going down a rabbit hole, but Gover, you had something to say?
Well, I was just going to say, is that actually a good thing that you were reminded of
Yes.
Sam Raimi and his films by the score? Because I would argue that it's not different enough.
No, because the composers have certain feels. Like for the classical music, you can tell Beethoven. You can tell when it's going to be when it's a Beethoven piece. They just have their certain feels of it. For instance, I'll throw this out there as well, and we're turning this into a great discussion, guys, by the way. You see Castaway. You've seen Castaway, and then you go and you look at almost a bunch of different Marvel films, but especially like Avengers Endgame. Okay? If you watch those two back to back, it is both Alan Silvestri that composed those. So this is Castaway, mid 2000s, early
2000s,
late
yeah.
aughts.
They reference Titans almost winning the Super Bowl.
Yes. So
Great milestone.
you have that there. There are certain progressions in what Silvestri's writing in Castaway that are so extremely similar, but it just changes the direction of the cadence for the end of that as well. And you see that a lot too in terms of Michael Giacchino and some of the stuff that he's done. That he did the Star Trek reboots that happened. So it's okay for there to be similarities. John Williams, if you watch a bunch of John Williams movies, and they don't have to be similar. If you watch Home Alone, Hook, and then Star Wars, Indiana Jones together, you're going to hear similarities, how they compose. Just like any musical artist, right? There's certain similarities typically in their music, and you're just going to recognize how it's produced.
And it's whether you like them or not.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you like, oh my God, all their songs sound exactly the same for 30 years. But if you love U2, that's why you listen to U2.
It's a winning formula.
For that sound.
Yep, it's a winning formula.
Right? So if you love it, then it's great. If you hate it, then it's torture.
And that's why opinion. I mean, it's your opinion, Jim. I mean, everybody has their opinions on what they appreciate and like, and if they find that formula, like what Gover said, that's what's going to win.
So, Justin Bradford's question of top 3 superhero movie scores, did we get everybody's in?
Give me your top 3 superhero movie scores, according to you, in the comments.
This is the Untitled Film Project Podcast. We've been talking Top Gun Maverick, and would love to hear your thoughts. How were we so wrong on something, or what about it that we didn't talk about that you feel we should have? That's where you need to tell us.
Yeah, on social media, Untitled Film Project, everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can watch. Right? We're not going to have necessarily video up there yet, but it's going to come. So wherever you want to consume your podcast, Spotify, wherever. Jim, where else can they find this podcast?
Everywhere you pod.
Everywhere. Subscribe. So it's automatically going to be there for your commute into work, for your commute home from work, for your lunch break, for when you just don't give a about work. You can listen to us.
You can rate us too.
Oh,
just
please.
like we rate movies.
Oh, no pressure.
Please be more generous.